as an omega of notable beauty, not a single alpha in the Republic dared to approach him. This was because his late husband had been Julian Vance, the nation's most formidable fleet admiral, a martyr sacrificed for the unity of the Republic. A month after Julian's state funeral, his heat returned with a vengeance. Finally, unable to bear it any longer, he navigated to a gray market site online, browsing for an alpha, only to be slammed back onto the bed by a pair of glacially cold hands. The man's voice was a venomous whisper. Liam's knuckles were white as he clenched the bedsheets below him. The charcoal gray linen, once smooth and cool, was now a tormented landscape of wrinkles, darkened with the evidence of his body's betrayal. It wasn't enough. It was never enough. He panted, his mouth open, his body a furnace threatening to melt him from the inside out. This was the third wave of his heat this month. Ever since Julian had been declared killed in action during the Frontier Wars, his cycles had become erratic and violent. Worse, he had long since developed an immunity to commercial-grade suppressants. He was left with no option but to endure, unless he could find another high-compatibility alpha to see him through it. He harbored no deep affection for Julian Vance. Theirs had been a strategic union, a merger of a powerful military family with his own influential lineage. After their wedding, Julian's presence was a given only during Liam's heats. The rest of the time, he was a ghost, perpetually stationed at the front. They were strangers who shared a bed out of biological necessity. Liam had considered himself fortunate for the lack of emotional entanglement, and lucky that their biological compatibility was exceptionally high, making his cycles manageable. But now, Julian's heroic status had become a gilded cage. Not a single alpha in the entire Republic would risk the political and social fallout of being seen with the martyr's grieving spouse, let alone engaging in anything intimate. The sheets grew damper. With a monumental effort, he pushed himself up, the words of his friend Alex echoing in his mind. Alex had suggested weeks ago that if it became unbearable, he should find a discreet alpha on the gray market, someone to keep on a private retainer. Initially, the idea had repulsed him. Now he couldn't care less. He was on the verge of dying from this primal, unmet need. His hands trembled as he opened the encrypted link Alex had sent him, tapping into the alpha search parameters. Instantly, a grid of profiles populated the screen, men from humble backgrounds, with clean records and verifiable genetics, typically sourced by the wives of the elite for whom marital satisfaction was a commodity. He scanned the data points' height, weight, and combat ratings. He swallowed hard. While their service records were nothing compared to Julian's legendary dossier, they were more than sufficient for his needs. In truth, Julian had always been too much for him. During his heats, Julian was attentive, almost gentle. But during his own ruts, the visits to the military base were a brutal affair. He would arrive on his own 2 feet and leave barely able to walk. The memory of the knowing, pitying glances from Julian's subordinates still made his face burn with shame. Cheeks flushed, he scrolled faster. Suddenly, the lights in his penthouse flickered. Beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows, the manicured trees on the terrace swayed unnaturally, though the air was still. An inexplicable chill traced its way down his spine. He whipped his head around, but the sprawling apartment was empty. A profound unease settled in his gut. He abandoned his search, randomly selecting an alpha whose profile picture bore a passing 2 out of 10 resemblance to Julian, and prepared to finalize the transaction. The power cut out with a definitive click. Plunged into darkness, Liam rose unsteadily, intending to check the circuit breaker. Before he could take a step, a frigid hand clamped onto the nape of his neck, forcing him face down onto the mattress. A presence pressed against his back, a voice a chilling static in his ear. The voice inquired what sort of punishment was fitting for a spouse who sought other company when his husband's memorial was still fresh. Liam's pupils dilated in the gloom. He asked in a trembling, disbelieving whisper if the man wasn't supposed to be dead. A dry, mirthless laugh was the only answer. Julian's hand, intimately familiar, slid beneath his silk shirt, its cold touch roaming freely. He remarked on Liam's desperation, his willingness to order a stranger to his bed. He mused that a husband couldn't possibly let his partner suffer so. He had to crawl right out of the grave to satisfy him, didn't he? The hand tightened on his stomach, and Liam let out a pained whimper. He quickly changed his tone, his words a placating murmur, insisting he wanted no one else. He begged Julian not to be angry, to be gentle. He didn't understand this new, ferocious possessiveness. Julian had never been the jealous type. He recalled once mentioning a handsome young soldier he'd seen on base, and Julian had barely reacted. Though, thinking back, he remembered that night being particularly rough. His thoughts scattered. When he came back to himself, Julian's hand had stopped moving, resting its icy weight on his lower abdomen. The cold made him shiver, yet his fevered body craved it, leaning into the chilling touch. He needed the relief. He scratched his fingers against Julian's palm, a silent, coaxing plea for him to move. Julian remained still. He seized Liam's chin, forcing their eyes to meet in the darkness. His black irises were bottomless pits. He demanded to know what Liam had been thinking about just now. Liam was confused for a moment before understanding dawned. Even without seeing his face clearly, the rage radiating from him was palpable. Julian's voice was low and dangerous as he questioned whether Liam had been fantasizing about one of the men on the screen. The dark-skinned one? Or the one he'd been about to order, Liam Cole? He asked if they could possibly satisfy him the way he could. This ghostly version of Julian was intensely jealous. It hadn't been 10 minutes, and he'd already bristled with anger twice. Liam was frankly terrified. Though Julian had never been physically abusive, his commanding presence alone was an oppressive force that always made Liam want to flee. When their families had arranged the marriage, he'd cried in secret for days. Taking a deep breath, he brought Julian's hand to his lips, kissing the cold knuckles. He told Julian how much he was suffering, begging him to put aside his anger for now. He rubbed his burning cheek against the back of Julian's hand, a desperate, feline gesture. Slipping free from his grip, he wrapped his legs around Julian's waist, pulling him closer, and pressed a kiss to the corner of his mouth. Clinging to him, he whispered hoarsely into his ear, urging him onward. Finally, Julian moved. He grasped Liam's thighs, his mouth crashing down on Liam's. His voice was still heavy with menace when he promised they would settle this tomorrow. After that, Liam was lost to a tidal wave of sensation, all thought obliterated. He awoke in a clean bed, his body feeling fresh. Lifting the duvet, he saw he was dressed in a clean set of pajamas. He glanced at the other side of the king-sized bed. It was empty. If not for the deep, aching soreness in his muscles, he would have convinced himself the entire night had been a fever dream. He walked slowly to the kitchen, where the housekeeper had already prepared a continental breakfast. As he ate, the doorbell chimed. It was Cole, Julian's former aide-de-camp and, notably, the only Omega in Julian's command staff. Every month, Cole brought him supplies and provisions, a gesture he paid for out of his own pocket. He claimed he owed his career to Julian, who had protected him from being discharged, and this was his way of honoring the admiral by looking after his spouse. Liam opened the door and invited him in, offering him a glass of water. Cole accepted with a smile, but then his eyes darkened. His hand shot out, seizing Liam's wrist. Several faint, reddish marks circled his skin, souvenirs from Julian's grip the night before. Liam quickly pulled his hand back, hiding it behind his back with a nervous laugh, claiming he'd bumped into something. Cole's gaze was intense, his expression visibly hardening. He accused Liam directly of finding another alpha. The accusation struck him like a physical blow. He swallowed, wanting to explain it was his superior officer who had made the marks, but then he hesitated. How could he explain this phantom situation without being committed to a psychiatric ward? The thought of his delicate sensibilities enduring such a place was horrifying. He stammered a denial, insisting it was an accident. Then, he decided to go on the offensive. He asked what Alpha would be suicidal enough to get involved with him, given his status. Cole didn't say if he believed him or not. He simply stated, in a frigid tone, that Liam was General Vance's spouse and should remember his station. The condescension ignited Liam's temper. He retorted sharply, telling Cole that he, too, should remember his station and question if that was any way to speak to his superior's partner. His voice dropped to an icy pitch. He demanded to know why he had to be an accessory to Julian Vance. He was forbidden from solving his own biological needs, forbidden from being seen in public places of entertainment, forbidden from meeting any alpha alone lest it be considered a betrayal. He reminded Cole that he never wanted the marriage in the first place. He had been forced into it. He was overwhelmed with a sense of injustice. If Julian hadn't returned as a ghost, would he have been doomed to suffer through every heat with nothing but memories, stripped of all dignity? The thought was unbearable. As his anger rose, his pheromones began to surge again. He quickly ushered Cole out and locked himself in the bedroom, clutching the now scalding gland on his neck. The bed linens had been changed, and the air was devoid of Julian's scent. He gasped for breath, clutching the comforter and calling Julian's name into the empty room. There was no response. Resigned, he curled into a tight ball under the covers, hiding his shame. His heat typically lasted 3 days. Today was the last day, and the symptoms should have been mildest. But perhaps agitated by the confrontation, he felt worse than ever before. He drifted in a state of delirious discomfort. He lost track of time, but eventually, a cold chest pressed against his back. A hand moved over him, bringing the relief he so desperately craved. He forced his eyes open and whispered Julian's name. A soft grunt of affirmation was the reply, followed by a kiss. A sense of grievance washed over him, and he turned his head away, avoiding the kiss. His voice was thick with tears as he pitifully questioned where Julian had been. He accused him of abandoning an Omega in heat, declaring that even for a marriage of convenience, his cruelty was excessive. The more he thought, the angrier he became. He reminded Julian that during his 7-day ruts, no matter how much it hurt, he had never once left him to suffer alone. He called him a heartless bastard. Julian wrapped his arms around Liam's waist, murmuring soft apologies, admitting he was a bastard. He leaned in to press a solemn kiss on his lips, promising it would never happen again. Liam didn't believe him. Before his last deployment, Julian had promised he would be back in time for Liam's birthday. He hadn't come back. He was always breaking his promises. When they were first married, he had spoken of a honeymoon after he quelled the insurrection in the Western Territories. Liam, though still wary of him, had been excited at the prospect of a vacation. But Julian had returned from that war zone only to be immediately redeployed to another. Liam knew he shouldn't be angry, but disappointment festered. By the time Julian finally had a furlough, it coincided with his rut, and the honeymoon was indefinitely postponed until Liam no longer cared. This time would be no different. The disappointment had accumulated for too long. So when he rolled over in bed the next morning and bumped into a solid, warm body, his mind went blank. He stared at Julian, who was watching him intently, and dumbly asked why he was still here. Julian's tone was unreadable as he asked if his presence was displeasing. It wasn't about pleasure or displeasure. It was simply a shock. This was the first time, after a heat, that he had woken up to find Julian still in his bed. Previously, as soon as his cycle broke, Julian would pack his things and be on a transport back to his post before dawn, never waking him. Liam would wake to an empty room. Julian seemed to flinch. He apologized, his voice laced with guilt. He admitted it must have been difficult, being alone at a time like that. He explained that Omegas become especially clingy after a heat, and he probably left while Liam slept to avoid a difficult departure. Liam told him he didn't blame him, that he understood his duties and responsibilities. He buried his face in Julian's chest, but his mind raced. He thought of Cole's accusation and looked up, asking if Julian would always be by his side like this. Julian was silent for a moment before shaking his head, admitting it was unlikely. Liam acknowledged this with a quiet sound. He then posed the question that had been weighing on him. If Julian wasn't going to be there for his future heats, could he find someone else to help him? He explained that the suppressants were useless, and he couldn't endure it alone. He argued that with Julian's death, their marriage contract was void. It had only ever been a business arrangement. He finished by stating plainly that Julian didn't love him, and he didn't love Julian. He met Julian's gaze, his own unwavering, and asked if it was permissible. Julian ignored the question. He asked which alpha from the other night had caught his eye, the one he planned to spend his life with. Liam shook his head, denying it. Julian's tone grew sharper, more accusatory. He then asked if it was someone Liam had become interested in that morning, while he was away. Liam pressed his lips together and admitted it wasn't that either. Julian demanded to know why he was asking the question if there was no one else. Suddenly, Liam's own anger flared. He retorted that just because there wasn't someone now didn't mean there never would be. He asked if Julian expected him to suffer for the rest of his life. He challenged him, saying that if Julian couldn't stay and be with him forever, then he had no right to demand his fidelity. His eyes welled with tears. He reminded Julian of the broken promise about his birthday, how he had waited all night only to receive the notification of his death. He called him a liar, his voice cracking as he accused Julian of bullying him too, just like everyone else. His words devolved into near-incoherent sobs. Julian sighed, his rough fingers wiping away Liam's tears. He pulled Liam into his chest, murmuring into his hair, asking who had bullied him. He promised to teach them a lesson. He just begged Liam not to find someone else. Liam didn't know how to answer. Should he say that in Julian's absence, even the ever-respectful Cole had started to berate him? What good would it do? Julian couldn't be there to protect him forever. He was gone for a single morning, and Liam was already being chastised. He bit his lip to stop a sob and said defeatedly that it wasn't Julian's fault. He shouldn't be taking his anger out on him. He knew Julian wouldn't be around for much longer, so they might as well take it one day at a time. The thought that one day Julian would disappear again, and he'd be free to find someone else without recourse, sent a sharp, stabbing pain through his heart. It was the same pain he'd felt when he first heard the news of Julian's death, a feeling like his organs were being pulverized with a sledgehammer. He instinctively burrowed deeper into Julian's embrace. Julian held him tighter, patting his back and whispering that it was okay, that Liam could vent his anger on him. He said the thought of Liam bottling it up and making himself sick would break his heart. A fool. Liam blinked his moist eyes. It was just a political marriage, yet Julian was taking his responsibilities to this extreme. He eventually figured out the pattern. Julian would appear soundlessly at 8 o'clock in the evening, punctual to the minute. Since Julian's return, the hours without him had become difficult to endure. It was like someone who had grown used to a thick winter coat being forced back into a thin shirt to face the cold. To kill time, he would arrange to go shopping with Alex, or if Alex was busy, he would wander the city aimlessly by himself, returning only moments before Julian was due to arrive. Lately, though, he'd had the unnerving sensation of being watched. He'd turn around, but the crowded streets would reveal nothing out of the ordinary. He told himself he was being paranoid. He had a pampered, tempestuous nature, but he never made enemies. There was no reason for anyone to be tailing him. He dismissed the feeling, but when he arrived home, he found Julian standing by the window, lost in thought. A siren blared in his mind. Were the Reapers here to collect him? His hand clenched into a fist. He called out Julian's name, his voice tight. Julian turned, the coldness in his eyes instantly dissolving upon seeing Liam. He acknowledged him with a soft sound. Liam looked past him, out the window. The space was empty. The breath he had been holding rushed out. He closed the distance between them and threw himself into Julian's arms. the residual fear making him cling tightly. Julian wrapped his arms around his waist with a soft chuckle, asking what had gotten into him to be so affectionate right away. Had he missed him? Liam gave him a light smack on the chest, chiding him for his levity, still shaken. He asked what Julian had been looking at so intently. Julian's expression was perfectly natural as he explained he was checking the next day's forecast. He said if rain was predicted, he would put an umbrella in Liam's bag so he wouldn't forget it again. His explanation was so plausible that Liam had to believe it. But as he turned away, a pair of black and white eyes in his peripheral vision made him stop. His breath caught. He took an instinctive step back, pointing toward the window and exclaiming that there was someone there. The figure was fast, vanishing before Julian could turn around. Liam rushed to the window but only caught a glimpse of a retreating back, a figure fleeing in haste. The shape was strangely familiar. Julian was right behind him, staring in the direction the person had disappeared, saying nothing. He put an arm around Liam, his voice low and reassuring, telling him not to be afraid. He promised that as long as he was there, no one would hurt him. Liam looked at him with suspicion, asking if he knew that person. Julian's body tensed slightly. He opened his mouth, but only uttered one name, Cole. He then looked at Liam, his gaze serious, and asked him to trust him and not ask any more questions. His dark eyes were so intense, they seemed to reflect only Liam's own doubtful expression. Liam wanted to understand. He wanted to know what Julian was plotting, why he was protecting someone who was clearly a threat. But in the end, he asked nothing. He knew that if Julian didn't want him to know something, no amount of questioning would yield an answer. The atmosphere in the room grew heavy. Liam went to the balcony and closed the window he'd opened earlier. As he drew the curtains shut, a cold body pressed against his back. Julian buried his face in the crook of Liam's neck, his voice muffled. He admitted there were things he couldn't tell him right now, for his own good. He pleaded with him not to be angry. It was then that Liam remembered Cole's original profile name on the site. He blinked. Previously, Julian would have been on high alert, vowing to make anyone who threatened Liam pay. This was the first time he had ever protected an outsider who was potentially a danger to him. His heart felt like a sponge soaked in acid. A bitter taste coated his tongue, and a hot surge of anger filled his chest. He closed his eyes, taking a deep breath. It's just a strategic marriage. I don't love him. Why should I be angry? It's a mutually beneficial relationship. Whoever he wants to protect is his business. To me, he's just a tool for managing my heat. Just a tool. Why should I care? Damn it. He shoved Julian away violently, his face a mask of fury. He shouted that he was a very busy person and had no time to get involved in his damn affairs. After their fight that day, Julian didn't appear for several days. Liam didn't know what he was busy with, but clearly, it was more important than him. He had even specifically warned Liam not to go out for a few days. Was he afraid Liam would run into him and his new little lover? Liam had no intention of listening. If Julian wasn't coming, he couldn't control him either. He sat in a dimly lit corner of a high-end club, the judgmental stares of other patrons feeling like physical blows. He scowled and threw back a glass of bourbon. What were they looking at? Had they never seen a grieving widower out for a little fun? He gestured to a young man beside him, offering him a drink. The boy blushed and leaned into him, his eyes hazy and suggestive. Leaving the club, Liam dismissed his driver, choosing to walk home in the cold night air. There was no one waiting for him anyway. What was the rush? The thought settled like a stone in his chest, making it hard to breathe. Only then did he allow the emotions to surface. More than anger, these past few days he had been consumed by fear. He didn't know if Julian was with someone else or if he had vanished for good. He had no way to contact him. The trip to the club, hiring the escort. It had all been a desperate, pathetic attempt to provoke a reaction, to see if he could draw Julian out. It hadn't worked. It seemed Julian was truly gone this time. He felt a wetness on his cheek but ignored it, continuing his miserable trek home. It wasn't until he heard the distinct sound of footsteps behind him that he realized he was being followed. He looked down at the sidewalk, his breath catching in his throat. The shadow was only a few yards away. He pinched the palm of his hand, forcing himself to remain calm, pretending he hadn't noticed. He tried to steer toward more populated areas. It was midnight, and the streets of the capital were quiet, but not entirely deserted. His pursuers seemed aware of the few passers-by and kept their distance. In his panic, he made a wrong turn, following a couple down a narrow service alley. A trap. He spun around in alarm, but a dark figure immediately appeared at the alley's entrance, blocking his escape. It was Cole. Liam stared at him, and at the stern-faced man behind him, his heart hammering against his ribs. In that instant, everything clicked into place. Before he could speak, a sharp chop to the back of his neck sent him into blackness. When he came to, he was tied to a chair. Seated on a leather sofa 10 feet away was an impeccably dressed, aloof man. A cigarette smoldered between his fingers. He glanced over at Liam, his expression one of pure indifference. He noted that Liam was awake. Liam glared back at him, his voice dripping with sarcasm as he remarked that Secretary Kane was certainly willing to do whatever it took to secure his power. Harrison Kane extinguished his cigarette, a lazy, tired look on his face. He stated that the struggle for succession was always like this. It was Julian's poor judgment, choosing to be his enemy. He offered a disingenuous apology, explaining that if Julian didn't die, he would become a thorn in Kane's side once he took power, a constant source of anxiety. Liam scoffed, telling him it was a bit premature to be talking about taking power. He pointed out that the president was still alive and well. Kane's lips curled into a cruel smile. He mused that whenever he decided he wanted to take power, it would be precisely when the president's time was up. A cold dread seeped up from the floor. Liam realized this man had no compunctions about patricide. Trying to reason with him to spare Julian would be a waste of breath. Since Kane had gone to such lengths to lure Julian out, it meant he wasn't completely gone yet. He had to escape before Julian was tricked into coming here. He couldn't be a liability. Kane seemed to lose interest in Liam's now compliant demeanor. He stood and beckoned to Cole, instructing him to watch Liam closely and not to disappoint him again. As he spoke, his eyes were fixed on Cole, only turning away after receiving a nod of confirmation. Liam detected something strange in the dynamic. It seemed Kane had feelings for Cole. Perhaps this was an angle he could exploit. He asked Cole what promises Kane had made to convince him to betray a superior who had been so good to him. He questioned his conscience, reminding him that Julian was already a ghost. Why couldn't they just leave him in peace? Cole's expression was a mask of indifference. He stated that everyone has their own destiny. Liam pressed him, asking why. Then, he had been so angry about Liam supposedly betraying Julian. He insisted that Cole clearly. Cole cut him off, his voice hoarse. He demanded to know what else he could have done. He wished, if it were possible, that the Admiral was still alive, but he insisted he had no choice. He claimed to be a victim as well. Cole explained that he had been forced. At the time, Secretary Kane had ordered him to lead Julian's fleet into an ambush at the Coral Nebula. He had defied the order, choosing a different route, but it had played directly into Kane's hands. Cole's eyes were bloodshot. He said there was no going back for him. Liam was stunned into silence. He had assumed Cole and Kane were allies. For years, the Republic had been expanding its territory, with only the neighboring insectoid dominion holding out. Conquering them would mean the final unification of the galaxy. The president's health was failing, and the ambitions of his potential successors were becoming more overt. Seeing Cole with Kane, Liam had naturally concluded he had thrown his lot in with him for power and position. His eyelashes fluttered. He refused to give up. He told Cole it wasn't too late, that if he let Julian go, there was still a chance to fix things. He begged him not to align himself with a man like Cain. A flicker of something, doubt, regret, crossed Cole's face. Liam thought his words were having an effect. He was about to press his advantage when Cole's comm unit beeped. Cain's cold voice came through the speaker. He informed Cole that Julian had arrived and to bring the hostage out. Cole's face fell. He looked at Liam, a bitter smile on his lips. He said now he truly couldn't go back. As Cole pushed him out, Liam clung to a sliver of hope. Julian was a ghost. How could he be captured so easily? But when the blindfold was removed, the first thing he saw was Julian, surrounded by a circle of psionics, smiling weakly at him. His heart seized. Panic finally set in. He screamed at Cain, cursing him, demanding to know why he couldn't leave Julian alone, even in death. He insisted he was no longer a threat. Then he turned his fury on Julian, roaring at him, calling him a fool for walking into a trap. He yelled that Cain would never have let him go, whether he came or not. A soft chuckle came from beside him. Cain's tone was ambiguous. He asked if Julian hadn't told him. Hadn't he mentioned that he wasn't dead at all? He mused that Admiral Vance was known for doting on his spouse, yet he kept such an important secret even from him. He shot a pointed look at Cole. He wondered aloud if perhaps Julian's affections had shifted. Liam ignored him, staring blankly at Julian. He demanded to know what Cain meant. Julian's lips thinned. After a long moment, he explained that he never meant to deceive him, and that his relationship with Cole was not what it seemed. He promised to explain everything later. Later, Cain interrupted with a sneer, asking if he really thought they had a later. He gestured, and the psionics activated their devices. The glyphs on the floor lit up, and a powerful wind whipped through the warehouse. A golden cage of energy erupted around Julian. He clutched his chest, blood trickling from the corner of his mouth. Liam was frantic, screaming for him to run, not to do this. He shouldn't have disobeyed him. If he had just stayed home, Julian wouldn't have been caught. Regret washed over him, and tears streamed down his face. He screamed until his throat was raw, completely oblivious to the sudden, disciplined sound of combat boots echoing through the space. A squad of black-clad, masked soldiers stormed the warehouse, swiftly neutralizing the psionics. Then, a figure in a recognizable state uniform walked calmly out from behind them. An old, familiar voice filled the air. "Harrison, enough of this foolishness." Harrison Cain looked at his father, the president, with a smile that held no warmth. He questioned if it was foolishness. He asserted that all men have ambition, and his was to lead the Republic. He told his father that his time was over. He gestured nonchalantly. He ordered Cole to contact his asset, Zhong. Zhong, Julian's most trusted strategic officer. Was he one of Cain's men too? A new wave of fear washed over Liam. He struggled violently, but Cole held him fast, his expression unmoving as he stared at Cain. In his peripheral vision, several of the president's elite guard were quietly moving into position behind Cain. Cain glanced at Cole, then let out a sudden, mocking laugh. He asked how many times this was now that Cole had betrayed him. And for Julian Vance again. He sneered, questioning what good it did. Julian would always love the useless Omega in his arms. He would never love him. Cole's hand trembled, and the blade he held against Liam's neck slipped, leaving a thin red line. Julian's eyes narrowed. He took 2 quick steps forward, his voice sharp. "Cole, don't hurt him." As if waking from a trance, Cole lowered his hand. The moment he dropped the weapon, the elite guard seized Harrison Cain. Seeing Liam was safe, Julian rushed over and pulled him into his arms. Only then did the reality of his survival sink in. He pounded a fist against Julian's shoulder, his voice a choked sob, calling him a stupid idiot for coming. Julian stroked his hair, murmuring that if he hadn't come, Cain would have used hurting Liam to force his hand anyway. Arriving sooner just meant Liam had to suffer less. Liam fiercely wiped the blood from Julian's lips, his voice accusatory as he asked if he knew the person that night was Cole all along. Julian hissed in pain but didn't pull away, letting him vent his anger. He admitted that he did. Liam felt a fresh surge of indignation. He demanded an explanation. He added bitterly that if Julian wanted to be with Cole, who had inadvertently caused his death, that was his choice. They didn't have a permanent bond, after all. And no feelings. His words were cut off. Julian seized the back of his head and kissed him, hard, silencing all his bitter accusations. He seemed angry as he pulled back, demanding to know why Liam was so determined to push him away. No feelings? He'd been dead for a month, and Liam was already looking for a replacement. Of course, there were no feelings on his part. He was probably hoping Julian would get with someone else and set him free. His arrogant facade finally cracked. He sounded wounded, his voice hoarse as he accused Liam of not only not loving him but also suspecting him. He asked if Liam ever considered that he, too, could get tired. Why couldn't he love him? Even as charity, as pity, why couldn't he give him just a little bit of love? The breath caught in his lungs. They were finally here at this conversation. Blood rushed to his head, and he felt a suffocating pressure in his chest. He opened his mouth, and the words came out before he could stop them. Do you want a divorce? He had always assumed Julian would be the one to say it first, finally fed up with his coldness. He never imagined he would be the one to propose it. Julian froze, as if the words had physically struck him. It took a long moment for their meaning to register. He looked like he'd been nailed to the spot. When he finally found his voice, it was barely a whisper. What did you say? Liam lowered his gaze. He said, with forced calm, that if Julian felt he couldn't go on like this, they should just get a divorce. He stated that he was incapable of loving him, incapable of giving him the response he deserved every time he said he loved him. As if trying to convince himself as much as Julian, his voice grew stronger, more resolute. He declared that it would be better for both of them to separate. Julian roared a single word. No. His eyes were rimmed with red, like a cornered animal making a last stand. He asked if Liam couldn't return his love. Couldn't he at least pretend? A kiss, a hug, anything. He wasn't asking for love, just a little hope. A flicker of deep pain crossed his face. He stared at Liam, who remained silent, and his expression slowly drained of color until it was ashen. It was then that Liam realized, in his desperate attempt to avoid his mother's fate, he had somehow become his father. He had pushed someone who loved him to this state of utter despair. Don't cry. He reached out, pulling Julian into a tight embrace. He kissed his eyes, his lips, licking away the tears until he felt the heat return to Julian's gaze. He rested his forehead against Julian's shoulder and whispered, "Is this enough? What else do you need me to do to make you feel better?" Julian didn't speak. He buried his head in Liam's neck, his body trembling with silent, suppressed sobs. The room was so quiet Liam could hear the faint, hitching sounds of his breathing. He was weeping with a restraint that suggested he believed his tears were a nuisance to Liam, better left unseen. Another wave of sour guilt washed over Liam. He ran his fingers through Julian's hair, finally offering a sliver of honesty. "Julian," he began, his voice hesitant, "I can't love you more than I love myself. But I am willing to humor you. You don't want me to leave, so I won't leave." It had been so long since he'd spoken from the heart that the words came out awkwardly. "As long as you stay by my side, I can try to learn to love you, in your way." He looked up, meeting his eyes, and asked with genuine concern, "Will that make you stop crying?" Julian slowly raised a hand to cup his face, his eyes searching Liam's expression. After a long moment, he asked in a raw voice if this would be a burden, if the conditions would make him uncomfortable. Liam shook his head. No. If it would stop Julian's pain, it was a small price to pay. A slow smile spread across Julian's face. His eyes curved as he leaned in and pressed a gentle kiss to Liam's lips. Then I won't feel wronged anymore. He finally explained everything. After the war, Kane had contacted Cole, ordering him to cooperate in an ambush. Cole had warned Julian, who, after surveying the terrain, realized the coordinates Kane gave Cole were likely a feint. To make Kane trust Cole completely and to smoke out the real mole in his ranks, Julian and his strategists staged his death, keeping even Cole in the dark. It was a dangerous gambit. He had to make Kane believe he was truly dead so he would lower his guard. He admitted that he hadn't told Liam for certain because he wasn't sure he could return to his body without complications and didn't want to give him false hope. Liam interrupted, asking if he knew Cole had feelings for him and why he kept him so close. Julian didn't answer right away. He pulled Liam out from under the covers, his eyes tracing his features as he asked if Liam was jealous. Liam scoffed, his pride stung, and said if he didn't want to answer, fine. He wasn't that curious anyway. A genuine, soft laugh escaped Julian. He leaned close, his voice a low murmur. "Kiss me and I'll tell you. Are you sure you don't want to know?" Liam turned his head away, not answering. Julian held his position over him for a few seconds. Then, without a word, began to push himself up. It seemed he really wasn't going to explain. "Wait," Liam blurted out. He felt a flush of embarrassment but pressed on, trying to salvage some dignity. "I didn't say I wouldn't. You're crushing my chest, I can't get up. Lower your head a little." Julian obediently did as he was told. His powerful arms supported Liam, taking his weight, as Liam wrapped his arms around his neck and leaned in to kiss him. As their lips met, the tense lines on Julian's forehead finally smoothed out. His mood visibly lifted. He settled back onto the bed beside him and began to speak. He explained that Cole didn't love him, he was just grateful. Years ago, Julian had seen him on the training grounds, a brilliant fighter and marksman, held back from promotion and ostracized simply for being an Omega. Julian had recognized his talent, transferred him to his own command, and given him the fair treatment he deserved. In return, Cole had volunteered for the most dangerous undercover assignment, infiltrating Kane's inner circle. Cole had once saved Kane's life, so Kane wouldn't harm him, but he was deeply suspicious. For a long time, Cole had fed him useless information. That's why Julian had to deceive Cole as well, making him believe he was responsible for his death, leaving him with nowhere else to turn but Kane. It was, he admitted, an unfair plan to Cole. When Cole saw the marks on Liam, he began tailing him, trying to find the other alpha. This aroused Kane's suspicion. He had Cole followed and discovered the secret. After that, Kane had kept Cole isolated, locked in a room with psionics every night. Julian couldn't get close until that night, when Kane revealed that he wasn't dead, and Cole finally understood everything. Julian brushed a stray piece of hair from Liam's forehead and asked if he had any other questions. Liam asked what would have happened to Cole if the plan had gone wrong. Julian replied that he had written a sealed letter, which the Republic's Chief Justice would have presented to the President upon his victorious return, clearing Cole's name. Liam wasn't entirely convinced. He couldn't believe someone would go to such lengths for gratitude alone. He remembered Kane's words and asked carefully, "Do you love him? He was willing to go undercover for you. He's smart. He makes your life easier. Unlike me. I can't help you with anything, and I just cause trouble." Before he could finish, Julian's hand shot out, cupping his chin. His eyes were suddenly sharp, glaring at him. He called him a heartless creature. "You know who I love," he bit out. "Are you saying this just to stab me a few more times?" He scoffed bitterly. "Then again, you don't care about me at all. All you need is an alpha to get you through your heats. Anyone will do."